The book that I chose for the read aloud is The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson, illustrations by E.B. Lewis. And this lesson is intended for fifth graders. I wanted to discuss what this book is about. This book is about racial segregation. Racial segregation is the separation of people based on their skin color. Back in 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, and with this act, students could no longer be separated in school based on their skin color. However, it took many years for this to be enforced. So as we go through this book, you will see racial segregation and this topic being discussed, and we will discuss about it throughout the story. That summer, the fence that stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other. And Mama said, "Don't climb over that fence when you play." She said it wasn't safe. That summer, there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning, she climbed up on the fence and stared over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on that fence with anybody, that girl didn't. Once, when we were jumping rope, she asked if she could play. And my friend Sandra said no, without even asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe yes, maybe no. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of that fence seemed far away. When I asked my mama why, she said because that's the way things have always been. Sometimes, when me and Mama went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looked sad sometimes, that girl did. Don't stare, my mama said. It's not polite. So I want to look at Mama's point of view in this. She says that's the way things have always been. Why do you think that she said that? Okay, so she could have said that because her daughter was seeing the separation between skin color for the first time, and she's telling her that they have always been separated and that's how it's always been. That's a good thought. Now let's think about what we see today. Have you ever seen or heard someone either in person or on TV or maybe in a game talk negatively about somebody that is of a different skin color than you? Okay, so a lot of us have. And do you think that that's a good way to think or a bad way to think? Right, it's not a good way to think, right? Because everybody deserves to all be accepted for who they are. Very good, let's continue. It rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on the fence in a raincoat. She let herself get all wet and acted like she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dancing around in puddles, splashing and laughing. Mama wouldn't let me go out in the rain. That's why I bought you rainy day toys, my mama said. You stay inside here, where it's warm and safe and dry. And every time it rained, I looked for that girl. And I always found her, somewhere near the fence. Someplace in the middle of the summer, the rain stopped. When I walked outside, the grass was damp, and the sun was already high up in the sky, and I stood there with my hands up in the air. I felt brave that day. I felt free. I got close to the fence, and that girl asked me my name. Clover, I said. My name's Annie, she said. Annie Paul. I live over yonder, she said. By where you see the laundry? That's my blouse hanging on the line. She smiled then. She had a pretty smile. And then I smiled, and we stood there looking at each other smiling. It's nice up on this fence, Annie said. You can see all over. I ran my hand along the fence. I reached up and touched the top of it. A fence like this was made for sitting on, Annie said. She looked at me sideways. My mama says I shouldn't go on the other side, I said. My mama says the same thing, but she never said nothing about sitting on it. Neither did mine, I said. That summer, me and Annie sat together on that fence, and when Sandra and them looked at me funny, I just made believe I didn't care. Some mornings, my mama watched us. I waited for her to tell me to get down from that fence before I break my neck or something, but she never did. I see you made a new friend, she said one morning, and I nodded, and Mama smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat on that fence and watched the whole wide world around us. Alrighty, so let's discuss. At the beginning of the story, we heard Mama tell Clover not to climb on the fence, but now she doesn't say anything when they're discussing her new friend. Why do you think she hasn't said anything about the rules she made at the beginning of summer? Okay, so you think that Mama probably tells Clover to stay away from the fence at first, because the family that lives on the other side could be racist and not accept Clover for who she is. But we see now that Annie is accepting, and they both just want to play with each other. That's a good thought. Very good. Let's move on. One day, Sandra and them were jumping rope near the fence, and we asked if we could play. I don't care, Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners, the way we used to be. When we were too tired to jump anymore, we sat upon that fence, all of us in a long line. Someday, somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down, Annie said. And I nodded. Yeah, I said, someday. Now that we have finished the book and we've had discussions, we talked before the book and throughout the book, what does the fence represent in this story? Why is the fence a big part of it? Very good. The fence represents racial segregation and the separation of people because of their skin color. Awesome. Yep, the two girls have different skin colors, but they accept each other for who they are, and they just find joy in spending time with each other. It doesn't matter their skin color. Very good.